Hello and welcome to Last to Eat, the show about everyday people leading others in extraordinary ways. We're kicking off our show with a special series called Crisis Management, focusing on business leaders who develop innovative ways to survive and in some cases thrive during this ongoing pandemic. Today we are joined by Sarah Thiel, the co-owner of CE Zoom. Welcome, Sarah. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So CE Zoom, I think sometimes, people may look, is that a variation of Zoom meetings? No, it's actually the CE is continuing education, which we'll get into in just a few, but is so important right now. How we're training our teams to kind of navigate these waters, how to keep them up to date with the newest education in their fields. And so this is something that you specialize in and something we're going to get into. So Sarah, before we jumped on this Zoom call, or before we jumped on the recording, we were talking about just, a little bit about what you do. And, I think that the continuing education part, especially during this ongoing issue that we're having across the country, is so important. And tough times have hit a lot of business owners, a lot of different industries, and a lot of different professionals' lives. So, for you guys, you and your co-owner and your team, how has 2020 challenged you to think differently about what you do and maybe service your clients a little bit more effectively? What's changed with you guys?
Oh yeah. So every business has a story since March of 2020 till now. And I'm sure most people's business plans aren't even what they started out as, which is, for us, it was a good thing. I know a lot of companies out there that it hasn't been a good thing for, but we were able to take this pandemic and pivot and explode. You mentioned Zoom at the beginning. Yeah, that's been really confusing because we do work a lot with Zoom. Yeah. We do a lot of webinars and a lot of our customers are getting really confused. We are completely different. Yeah. We just happen to launch about the same time with a similar name. Anyway, so what we do is we manage continuing education, courses, stuff like that. So we also manage the licensees, like the licensing department for anybody that's licensed in any profession. So our sole purpose was to do these live events and track everyone's CE so they can submit it to their regulatory body to get relicensed. A lot of our customers were doing in-person live events. So when all this started, we had all of our customers calling and canceling. I don't know if you've heard of like StubHub, all of those ticketing agencies. We have a registration platform just like them. So that was happening and we were like, what do we do? Like, we're going to go out of business. We can't keep this up. And then I started thinking, I'm like, well, all these conferences are canceling. We've got all the connections with the speakers. We've got access to webinar streaming. My brother's a movie producer in Utah, so he was kind of out of work for a little while. So I had him at my exposure. And I, within one day, launched a conference. I just set it up, put in all the links and launched it. And within about 3 days, and it was happening in a week because everybody was freaking out. The state boards were saying, you still have to get your CE, nothing changes, and a lot of people's renewals were coming up. So we had to help our profession. And we launched it, and within 3 or 4 days, we were sold out at 5,000 attendees.
And this was nationwide?
Nationwide, yeah.
Wow.
And
these are the great stories that are coming out of the challenges that we're facing. It's business owners, entrepreneurs being very nimble. When you were putting this together and you said one day, is that correct? You put it together in a day. Was there ever a point where you were involved in it, putting together the site or the ticketing, whatever it is that you were doing, and you said, wow, this is nuts. This is crazy that we're trying to pull this off in 24 hours.
Well, when I realized that I could do it, it was like no turning back. But I didn't also think, so a little backstory, just like 4 weeks before all this, maybe 3, we had just closed on a deal with an investor. And because we were struggling, we were like, we know this is a great idea. We know there's reason for it, but we just couldn't monetize it. I'm a dental hygienist by trade. My partner's a dental hygienist. We built this because we needed it. We didn't know business. We didn't understand that. So we built it and we're like, oh crap, this costs a lot of money. How are we going to pay for it? And now how are we going to survive? And so we got an investor, closed on that 3 weeks later, launched this conference and brought in almost $500,000 in one conference.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And You know, as you were going through this, you know, have you begun to implement this blueprint that you created? You had this conference, it was very successful, but have you started to replicate this over and over? What are other things that you've done based on the success that you had with this 24-hour turnaround conference?
Yeah, we realized that, you know, and this helped us because we've been trying to do this for a long time, but a lot of people were afraid of technology,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
older dentists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Middle-aged to older. They just didn't want to do it. They wanted to go to the live event, get their certificate, walk out the door. We aren't built that way. We're completely automated. And the virtual version of this is way better because people can chat and ask questions. And when you're sitting in a room, you can't do that. So yes, we basically took that and we've launched 4 since, had just as much success with all of them. We've been doing, now we've kind of slowed it down because everyone's back at work.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned what industries were really hit by this. Dentistry was one of the worst hit.
Yeah. Dentists
couldn't work. They didn't have a way to pay their employees. You know, everybody had that PPP stuff, but it was just, it was such a mess. And they couldn't go into work and treat their patients because they weren't essential, which they absolutely are. Like,
yes,
I think that frustrates me the most, but they were hit hard. So we were really trying to make sure we were taking care of our people and keeping them entertained, keeping them educated through all this. And then they slowly started going back to work. So they're all back now and it's a completely different world.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of the courses we were putting on were OSHA, infection control. How are you going to come back to work? Anyway, so I don't
you know, Sarah, you mentioned something that has been written about a lot. It's about the adoption of technology. And, you know, I think that what the pandemic has really done in 8 months has really changed how we deliver our services or our products, or you know, we're really using it in a way that probably we weren't going to see for another 3 to 5 years. And all these people were now forced to, these people that were sitting on the fence. And so for you, and understanding what you do and how you are able to keep people on top of what's changing in their industry to maintain their licenses or their accreditations, are you guys finding that you're using technology more than ever to communicate with them? And if so, you know, how can, if I were a dental practice and I needed to maintain my licenses, you know, is it as simple as just looking you guys up online, or is it a phone call? How do we get connected so that way we can maintain these certifications that we need?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now we're just in dental, but we're projecting in 4 weeks we'll be in all professions. We've been wanting to do this for years.
Yeah.
Also, we've been wanting to do these live virtual events for years, but nobody would adapt to it because they were afraid of the technology. So, which is amazing. Like, I am so glad. I'm not glad COVID happened. I mean, it's affected a lot of people. I'm a single mom of 3 kids. So I was homeschooling and trying to do this business where it was exploding. I didn't sleep for 3 months. So that was my challenge. Other people had other challenges, but my challenge was my children and trying to make sure they did all their homework. You know, it was horrible. Sorry, what was your question? I totally got off topic.
You know, it's the use of technology, and a lot of these people that were on the fence, they were eventually going to make the transition, but because of what's been happening, they've been forced to do it now.
Right.
And I want to make sure that they know that they can be comfortable in your team's hands because of you've been using this technology for a long time. And it's as simple as just a conversation, or, how do they find you guys in order to have that first conversation?
Yeah, you can go to cezoom.com.
Yeah.
We're a website. And then from there you sign up, and it's free to sign up. It's free to take, if the course is free. If it's a course that we're not doing, it's free to take for the most part. And then you just upgrade whenever we have your profession completely in, because it's, we're state specific and profession specific, which is insane for anybody that understands licensure, even across borders, across states, across professions. It's completely different. So it's taking us a lot of time to get every profession in. Once your profession's in, you can upgrade and track your CE based off of your individual requirements.
That's wonderful.
And it tells you what you need. It's not just like a glorified filing cabinet. We physically send you notifications and say, hey, you're still missing child abuse and CPR. I don't care if you have 75 credits and you only need 45. You have to have those 2 courses to get your license.
Yeah. And so you mentioned something that I think a lot of business owners are dealing with. You mentioned being a single mom with 3 children. By the way, how old are your 3 kids?
13, 10
Oh,
yesterday, and
okay.
7.
Happy birthday.
Yep.
Okay, got it. So you're juggling a lot. And in order to maintain not only your family and those responsibilities, but also your growing business, it does take a solid team. So with your group, whether it's your co-owner or the people that you've brought in around you, how are you guys empowering them, especially with these things happening with the pandemic and a business that, as you're saying, has been successful, but is preparing to launch into a new chapter with different areas of different industry? How do you identify the right people? How do you empower them? How do you make sure that your vision and the co-owner's vision are implemented every single day?
Oh, that is the golden question, right? Everybody, employees, that is probably the hardest part of owning a business.
Yeah.
So in March, we were a team of 4,
Okay.
and we had 2 web developers. Now we're a team of 12 and have 6 developers.
So
We've grown.
you've grown 3 times over
Yeah.
during the course of the pandemic. That is wow.
And my team, it was us 4 through that whole thing. And they stepped up. They worked all night with me. They were amazing. Like, I'm very thankful that I had the people in place that I did, but obviously it was too much for us. And just starting to bring people in has been really difficult because it's a big system. It's hard to learn, just because there's so much to it.
Yeah.
Hard for my employees to learn, not for the end user, but the back end.
Sure.
And so it's been tough, but we didn't have processes in order. We didn't have tech support, and it's all done now. So now it's like my life is finally slowing back down, but this was stuff that needed to happen and probably would have taken 3 to 4 years to do.
Yes.
We did it in 2 months because we had no choice.
Yeah.
But the biggest important part was trying to keep my team happy and have them support us through this, because there were we all had a breakdown at different times. Thank goodness it wasn't all at once, but that was hard.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have any advice for that.
These people that you guys bring in, you went from 4 to 12 over the last several months. Obviously you want competency, you want people who can fulfill their job roles. Is there any intangibles that you look for with these people? Certain personality traits, anything that would help differentiate your team from a competitor?
Absolutely. So we're really, really big on tech savvy. I mean, we're a tech company. So if you don't have tech skills, it's not going to work, because I need you to be able to conform to what the customer needs and be able to think outside the box to be able to help them.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand like Google Calendars and Zoom and all, I mean, that it's not gonna work.
It's true. It's true. I mean, these skill sets were important even before the year of 2020, and are incredibly critical as we move forward. And so I agree. And so, you talked a lot about the sleepless nights. I've been there. I think most people who will be watching this in about a week or so probably have been there as well. So when you do have time, do you reflect on, I think everyone reflects on the pandemic, but not everyone has the perspective of a business owner. Everyone looks at it a little bit differently, whether you're a parent or you're a grandparent or you're an employee of a company and you're facing different challenges. But when you reflect on the last, since March, do you see the good as well as the not so good that's come from all of this from a business owner's perspective?
Yeah. I mean, I look back and I have some regrets for sure, but we were challenged. It was stressful. I didn't know if we were going to survive mentally and physically. I didn't know if my children were going to survive because I was stressed, but I'm just kidding. But
well, I mean,
it was hard.
It was a very real year. Yeah. Yeah.
Reflecting back, it's like, I don't even know. Like, I can't even believe this happened. Like, that's where I'm just in disbelief. Like, if somebody told me even in January that the world was going to shut down and we were going to have to homeschool our kids, I would have said, whatever, go play a kite. So
I have this conversation when I'm gathered around friends or family, and, we always start out with the mask on. And it's kind of the same thing over and over. It's like, man, can you believe we started out at the beginning of the new year, ringing in the new year together, and now we're sitting here 6 months later with a mask around our face to talk. And so it's really, it's not only changed how we interact, but it really has changed, the things that the things that we're challenged with and how we overcome them. And so for you as a mom, as a business owner, and probably a number of other things, a daughter, a granddaughter, all these different responsibilities, what do you do to remove yourself from these stressors? Are you writing, meditating, exercise, running? What do you do to help kind of calm that stress?
I do exercise
Yeah.
a lot. Like that helps. But the biggest thing for me is shutting it off. I shut it off at 5 o'clock and I don't open it back up till the next day, because if I do, I'm sucked back in. Like that was really unhealthy for me.
Yeah.
And I live kind of close to on a lake, and I go fishing.
Okay. So for you, 5 o'clock is your absolute.
Yep.
Okay. So
If anyone calls me after, sorry, I'll call you tomorrow.
you don't sneak a peek at emails around 7:30 or 8 o'clock? Well, hats
I
off to you.
can't.
Yeah.
I can't. Well, I used to, and I think it ruined a lot of relationships in my life, and it's not worth it.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
It'll be there tomorrow.
Well, that's real entrepreneurial toughness. I sometimes, even with some of my existing clients, and I'll out them, I'll get texted like midnight, 1 a.m. And I'm like, and I'll be watching TV, or sometimes I'll be catching up on work, and I'm like, my goodness, it is late tonight. But sometimes that's just how the mind works. It wants to solve the problem, and it wants to solve it now. And so it is a compliment to you that you've been able to compartmentalize that. And hey, 5 o'clock is, I work to the bell, and then my time at night is dedicated to me or my kids or my family or whatever it is that I'm doing. And I think that really does help, without us realizing it. It does help us the next day, because that stress has then been removed for a long period of time. We talked a lot about, some of the fears that you had, and, the challenges that popped up both in your personal and professional life. Do you feel like you're wiser based on all of these experiences? You said you had some regrets, and my business did too. I wish we had prepared better financially for what happened to us, because we are facing a lot of very stiff challenges right now as you and I speak. And I wish myself and my business partner had done a little better, but I have gained a lot of wisdom along the way. And for you, is there a nugget that's come out of this? Like, damn, I wish we had saved more money, or I wish we had done this, but it's over now and we're here and I've learned this. What would that be for you?
Yeah, I wish we had launched other professions a year ago, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been in my little dream box, or whatever you call it, my business plan, since I started, and it's always been bugging me. And had we done that, we'd be in a whole different position. I mean, we're still helping other professions, even though we're not really in those professions. Yeah. But we could have done a lot more and helped a lot more people that didn't have. I mean, we were all, it's almost like we were prepared, because we had the way to do everything virtual. Like that's what we had been building for 5 years. And then it just kind of got laid in our lap, finally.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, you mentioned something that hit home with me at the very beginning of the conversation about the live event industry. And so for us, one of our big hurdles right now is the fact that this is our event season. We do a lot of event marketing and publicity. We have a chain of haunted houses across the state of Texas. We have the auto show, the home and garden show. All that's gone. And I think for us, hindsight being 2020, not putting so much emphasis on one leg of the table, especially around this time of year. And, we got word a month ago that all these events were being canceled for the year. We were anticipating something, but we were hoping for at least, something to come out of it. Like we would have some work, and it's not. So I get it, and we're 10 years down the road. We've been doing this for a long time, and we're still facing things this year that I never would have anticipated. And so I think for us, the lesson has been start to anticipate more things.
Can you do what we did?
Potentially.
I mean,
Yeah.
They're all canceled. That's exactly what happened to us. Everybody was pulling out and canceling, and we were like, we're going to sink. And then we didn't.
Yeah. Potentially. And it's something I think maybe you and I can talk about offline a little bit. Yeah. This is about you. This isn't our horror story. This isn't our sad sob story, which it really hasn't. We've gained a lot from this year too. So I don't want to make it seem too bleak. It's just, it has been challenging. So coming back to this, I'm talking to one incredible leader who probably knows a bunch of incredible leaders. All the years that you've spent building your business over the last 6 years, probably being in the professional world for many years before that, what are some of the characteristics that you think make up a great leader? How would you describe that person, him or her, in just a few sentences?
See, and like, I'm being 100% honest, I do not feel like I'm a very good leader because I am a pushover. But one thing this pandemic has taught me is I know what I'm doing, and I can't so as a leader, just stepping up to the plate and really enforcing what you believe in, and don't let anybody talk you out of it. Because if you know, and don't, because that was my issue for the last 5 years, is I knew what I wanted to do and I knew where I wanted this to go, but I would listen to those little voices all around me. And through this, I just said, like, okay, so when we launched that conference, for instance, I didn't know if I had money to pay these speakers, honestly. And so I called everyone that I knew was a good friend and said, hey, can you do this with me? I don't know how well it's going to do. It might flop, but will you speak for 2 hours? I'll give you a revenue share. So those speakers made out like a bandit in that first one. They made more than they've probably ever made for a 2-hour presentation. But that's like, had I just so a good leader needs to just, you know what you want, you know where it's going to go. Don't listen to anybody. Well, I think ish.
And I think you're right. When we launched our company in 2010, we were coming off the backs of the recession, and we had a lot of people in our ear, and we were very young at the time. I was 27, my business partner was 26, and we had a lot of people in our ear. A, we didn't have the experience to launch a business, and then B, we're still coming out of this recession, and people just aren't hiring marketing and PR firms. And I hate to say I told them so, but here we are 10 years later, right?
Right.
And so you take calculated risks, I think. I think you have a small inner circle of people that you really trust, mentors or, leadership that you really trust. And you give them the idea, and even if they don't totally agree with it, they should be willing to help you, because there's always going to be some risk involved with any decision that you make as a business owner. And as you can see, you're still standing after 6 years.
Oh, barely. Just kidding. Well, we almost did. That's what I'm saying. Like, there was probably 3 times, for sure, 3 throughout those 6 years that we quit.
Did you really?
And then I would I have the best business partner ever. Like, we're completely opposite. And so between the two of us, like, we would just wake up the next day and be like, how about we go this direction? Or if we do this, we can make it. So it was very helpful, because if I was doing this by myself, I don't know how it's hard.
Yeah, I imagine my life without my business partner, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty, because we do complement each other's deficiencies, and we also work really closely together on all decisions without much arguing or contentiousness. It's always, if you think it's a good idea, let's do it. And if it doesn't work, we'll adapt.
Yeah, and so that was kind of my point to that, is we would bring something to the table. And she is very, I won't say negative. She just picks out every little thing that could go wrong. And then I would make the ultimate decision if I was willing to take that risk. And that was how we did things. And so
I love it. And I love the vulnerability of you being able to say, like, sometimes I don't feel like a great leader. I think there's work to do. But I think if you really were to step back and look at yourself critically, you're in your own head all the time. If you were to be a third party, if you were to be looking at you, I think you probably recognize, you have 6 years in, and you've, tripled your team in the middle of the biggest crisis that, arguably we've seen this generation. You've been able to not only get through the pandemic, but adapt and innovate. Obviously that's proof in the conference that you had 5,000 attendees in 24 hours of hustling. You're getting ready to launch a whole new arm of your business into different areas and industries. To me, that sounds like someone who has, if not perfect leadership, is on their way. And so, for you, even if sometimes you feel that struggle, am I a good or not so good leader? have you found that, the 6 years that you've put into your own business, you and your business partner have maybe changed the way you handle, your personal life as well? Like how you decide to raise your kids? Do you see an impact there positively?
Absolutely. I mean, I used to clean teeth for a living, which was awesome. I loved my patients. I loved all of that. But I was kind of just in this, it wasn't for me. I have a much bigger personality. So, on that same note, like just through this pandemic and in general, watching my kids, or even just owning this company, watching how my kids interact with their friends and what they do with their school projects, it's all like entrepreneurial. They want to do this and they want, no, that's not good enough. We're going to do something else. And I just sit back and smile because I'm like, okay, they're watching me. But there's times that I have that mom guilt and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm ruining my kids, especially early on because I was working. Like I said, this is why I don't do this anymore. I was working around the clock. Yeah. Every second I had, I was putting into this. I mean, I lost a marriage through it. Some friends, just because I was so focused on this. And that's where I feel like my leadership skills were really crappy, but they're getting better. I'm a whole new person now.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. And both of us have a connection to the Entrepreneurs Organization, and a little bit of what you're saying reminds me of getting around the round table with my accelerator peers or being in an EO forum, and you hear a lot of these things. And so it's important for business owners to understand, you're not alone.
Right.
I've heard a lot of the stories where the business just interfered with relationships or the business disrupted different areas of our life. But if you're wise enough to see the damage that it caused and then work towards eliminating those things that were causing it, then I think you're growing as a person, not just as a business owner, but as a person. Because as you probably have experienced through the EO Accelerator program, there's a lot of these stories hanging out there.
And that's where some regret, you go back and you think it's like, did I have to work that? I kind of did, but now I realize my relationships and my children are the reason I do this. So they need to be priority. This needs to be second. And so that's what I've done.
And Sarah, this is the last thing I'll share because I do want to get to, how people can find you guys and get in contact. But, I think that one step that you took, that eliminating anything after 5 o'clock, that's huge. And that's something that a lot of business owners, including myself, we struggle with. Even 10 years in, I'll tell you, 2019, there were times when I was sleeping at the office because I didn't know when to say no. I was putting together things at the last second, but I was constantly grinding. And it's something that I've struggled with. And so I know for a fact that just by doing that one simple thing, by 5 o'clock every day, Monday through Friday, I'm done. That can radically change, how healthy you approach your business and your personal life. And so that's a great tip for anyone out there that's listening. And so for those that are out there listening and are interested in what you were talking about, that continuing education, about making sure that their teams stay certified, accredited to do their business, and are interested in taking advantage of the tools that you have, the technology, how do they find you? I mean, you mentioned cezoom.com, of course, but I assume there's also a phone number for those of us that like to call people and hear their voice, right?
We have a phone number. I don't know it though.
Okay,
it's a 1-800 number.
Oh, that's great. Well, then people can call in nationwide, toll free, and we'll get that number from you and we'll have it displayed on screen. And just so that way other people, these seminars that you have and the industries, when are you planning to roll out these new industries? Are we talking a week from now, a month?
At least 4 weeks.
Okay.
You know how development is. Anybody out there who owns a tech company, my development team's telling me 2 weeks, so I'm saying 4. Okay. It could be 6, but yeah, we're very close.
Wonderful.
And if you have a profession where you have a hard time and your requirements are hard, like psychiatry has reached out a lot, bankers, real estate, oddly enough, reach out, let us know, so we'll make sure we put yours in before the other 700.
Gotcha. Well, Sarah, this has been phenomenal. In fact, before I was introduced to you a few weeks ago by a mutual friend, Chad Webster, I did not know that this service existed.
Right.
I did not know that continuing education was an actual service that you could provide to other people. I thought it was just a webinar that you signed up for every couple of months. And so For me, I think I have a lot of people in my network that could really benefit from what you do. And I
Great.
think my last question before I let you go is, when you look forward, you're 6 years old now. I know you're going to make it another 6 years. What do you want to see from CE Zoom in the next half decade? Where are we? Where are we in 2025 with CE Zoom? What do you look like?
It's going to be the place for people to go get their CE and know exactly what they need so they can practice and not have to worry about what they have to do on the side to stay licensed.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Well, Sarah, I want to thank you again. I've been joined by Sarah Thiel, co-owner of CE Zoom. Sarah, I've really had a good time talking with you, and thank you for being open about some of the personal challenges that you've had across the last several years.
You bet.
Great.
Absolutely.